Hey, welcome to the first episode of the podcast, The Journey. We're going to dive in and meet mortgage leaders, CEOs, branch managers, top LOs, and we're going to learn about their story, what they did well, what they messed up, and what their secret sauce is. For the first episode, I thought the most interesting thing to do would be to interview my partner, the most badass mortgage person that I know in the industry, and learn about the DML story, how we met, what we've done well, and let's dive in. So, Ashley, how's it going?
Good, Mike. Good.
Thanks
for having me.
Yeah, so I figured we'd talk a little bit about our story and maybe some funny anecdotes and what we did well. How we meet?
How did we meet? Well, it was a while ago. Back in 2003, I graduated college with my fiance, moved down to Baltimore, and was looking for my first real profession, which went on a lot of interviews. Knew I wanted to be in sales, thought marketing, my degree was in marketing and management, thought I could kind of combine those two things into a sales-related job and stumbled into a position in the mortgage industry. It was a junior executive of a company in Towson, Maryland. Cool culture, a lot of awesome people I met on the way in, and took the job. Day one, figured out that I was a telemarketer, which wasn't exactly what I was expecting, but basically figured if I'm going to be a telemarketer, I'm going to be the best telemarketer I possibly can. Week one, worked my tail off, actually set a new record for the most leads generated, was getting high fives around the pit there, and was on a high coming out of the first week. Second week, set the same approach, like I'm going to absolutely kill it. Another record. I'm going to be the top dog again. And in this position, it was really a rotating door where Friday would come, a few people would get up. On Monday when you came back, they were no longer there. Around noon on Monday, a new group of people would come in, sit down, and get at it again. Long story short, that happened to the person beside me. And week two, the guy that sits down beside me is the person I'm sitting across the table from right now. Didn't really, I wouldn't say that we hit it off right from the beginning. Second week, Mike comes in, kicks my butt, beats the record I set before. My high fives are now going to this guy, which I'm like, oh man, I don't think I like this guy. And really, that's kind of how it's all started, and is still to this day a big part of our relationship. Is
that we were really good telemarketers?
No, that we were competitive, extremely competitive, and really, that's a lot of what's pushed you and I think, through our journey is just this absolute commitment to trying to be the best every single day, and a commitment to each other that. You know, in the telemarketing role, we were very much lined up against each other, but we started a friendship in that position. And then as we were promoted to loan officer and then branch manager and then vice president, it very much still continued to be competitive, but in a way that was much more collaborative. And I think brought out the best in us and allowed us to achieve so much when we were really young, early on, without really knowing where we were going and kind of why we were doing some of this stuff.
Yeah, we didn't know what the heck we were doing. I mean, you think about that year, 2007-ish, the beginning of that year was craziest time in the mortgage industry ever. It was like a dumpster fire for sure. And, we had just been promoted to run the sales team or the entire sales for the whole company. And we had zero idea what we were doing. We have people twice our age wondering why we were managing them, and I think we kind of felt the same way, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It was interesting getting assigned a team of folks that had more experience in the industry, some of them than we had years on the earth, sure. And coming in and trying to coach and gain their trust and really their respect was definitely an interesting challenge, but something that made us really step up our game. I think,
for sure. So when we started making strides there, why do you think that was? Like, what do you think we learned from that year where we were 26, 27, managing 150 LOs?
I think one thing that allowed us to be successful was we weren't trying to be people that we weren't. You know, we kind of realized we only knew what we knew was one that we had set records in sales. Like basically in that group, we were number one and number two the years that we competed.
One and two.
I should have got my trophy. We were 1 and 2, and really what we knew was we knew how to do that job really well.
Yeah.
And we didn't fake like we knew everything about managing them, everything about really the other aspects of the role. It was basically like we cared, we were committed to their success, and we were all kind of figuring it out together. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what allowed us to get over that hurdle, was just kind of staying true to knowing what we knew, mm-hmm. and then quickly just trying to learn as much as we possibly could about the aspects that we weren't that strong in. Yeah,
sure. And I think the other part was that we realized that we couldn't be successful if they were successful first. Like that's probably the biggest thing that I took out of that year was, you know, they were so used to their managers wanting to be successful first and like wanting everything for themselves, and then they got the scraps. Where like I think where we actually gained the floor's trust was where we started at. Like, this is about you. We want you to succeed first. Like, we'll never be successful if you aren't winning first. Yeah.
You think about some of the managers were there with 100% the case.
Yeah. So like, if we think about what happened that year, what are some of the other things that we learned? Because that year, if we think about 2007, that was kind of a big year for you and I. You know, we had been promoted, but at the same time, we were starting to realize that there was a much better way to do this, both in how you run the company and how you manage people, and you know the opportunities that you can create. Like, you know, what do you think about when you think about that year? And you know, because that was the year essentially we started DML.
Yeah. As we were promoted from position to position, there were a couple things that I remember very vividly about that experience and about that time. One of which was the amount of our work ethic and hours we had to put in completely like continued to increase to like an almost insane level. And probably something I'll circle back to a little bit is when we started DML, kind of some of the things that were important to us. But so one was work ethic. Second was as we were promoted, we were getting more and more of the real info of how the company was run. Yeah. Some of which in really good ways, others in ways of like, why in the heck would we be spending money in some of these areas?
Yeah, right.
And
like what? Give me an example.
Well, I mean, just the two that I remember the most are, one, there were some things around the office that just were so ornate and expensive that made no sense. We had this conference room table that was like a medieval barn door kind of thing, and I think it was like $75,000 or $80,000 just the table.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What do we spend our money? Like, why would you put that much money into that conference room table? Secondly, was the real estate that we didn't own, we leased as a company. And you know, in the mortgage industry, and especially with that company, we weren't looking for walk-in business. It was like we didn't need like grade A prime real estate.
Yeah, nobody.
We
really
could have been really anywhere and done the same job. Yeah. But instead of taking that approach where you can really do it anywhere, it was we're going to have thousands of square feet at basically some of the most expensive locations in Baltimore. Yeah, which I guess when times were good, you know, and there was plenty of money to go around. Yeah. Nobody really
felt like a law firm, like marble floors and gold ceilings kind of a thing, right? Yeah. So, all right. So we learned a couple lessons there. One, like it's got to be about the people first, and the second is like how you control your expenses and what's important. And you know, I think when we were bringing suggestions to the CEO of that company, you know, as young guys, I mean, I get where she was coming from. She was like, you know, you guys don't know what you're doing. You know, it's. You know, you don't have the experience, but the reality is we were as connected as anybody to that company and knew exactly where we're at and knew we needed to change. Like, you know, it was a subprime company. It wasn't crazy like NAGAMs or anything like that, but, you know, it was a lot of arms and interest onlys and stuff like that, that like, I don't think the salespeople, we didn't feel great about the deals that we're doing. There were better loans. There was government loans and there was lower rates and stuff like that. And like the company just lost the conviction of the sales floor. Like when you're selling something, you have to believe in what you're selling, you know, otherwise it just comes across as fake, you know? So I think that was another thing we were pushing, was just better products for, for our
100%.
clients, but also better products for, for our salespeople.
It would bring some sustainability to that organization at that point in time.
Yeah, it kind of felt
changing so much.
If we were managing a police station and the cops had like toy guns, you know what I mean? Or like little like 6-shooter revolver, like old guns, you know what I mean? Like we'd want them to have the best guns that they could have, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so 3 really valuable lessons. And then I think like what all that resulted in is us going like, all right, well, we've brought these ideas forward. We've been told no, you don't know what you're talking about. Or we've just been yesed, and that resulted in like us being like, well, what are we in this position for? Like, why did you hire somebody and trust someone with
frustrating.
Like a huge role inside this company? And then, from a leadership top down approach, just be like, I'm going to make all the decisions. Like, so I felt like we also learned that if we're going to empower people into positions, like we got to trust them to actually do the job, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Because we devoted a lot of time and probably if we could find it, the business plan we put in place, that we put together.
Yeah. Back of a napkin type of a deal.
Exactly. Yeah. Although it probably wasn't extremely well polished, we spent a lot of time, and I think there was some real validity. And if I remember right, there was a point where you and I basically, we had a round table on like a Friday. It was a crazy time. And like these big meetings where she pulled like all of the leaders of the company together were very, very, they were very concerning every time we get together. And if I remember right, there was a time where you and I basically had half of this meeting where we basically presented our ideas. Yeah. And through the meeting, everybody's, it's like, yes, that we can do that. That sounds great. Yeah. To then eventually it was like, we never even did it. Right. You know what I mean? Like the real follow up or push forward, it just kind of got, pushed to the side. Yeah. And we're going to keep doing things how they are. Yeah. So we're getting into like the end of 2007. And I think, there was the Implodometer, which for, mortgage people, you remember this website that basically just tracked all the companies that were going out of business in 2006, 7, 8, and we're sitting there refreshing our screen almost every hour to make sure that we're not out of business yet. But it was really weird. You could feel the company going out of business to some degree, and like in all of that, when we felt like there was a better way to do this and we felt like we had all these ideas in this business plan and like had learned this huge lesson of how not to run a mortgage company that year, the end of 2007, we're like, well, let's just do this ourselves. Right. Yeah. And we kind of didn't know what we didn't know. We were so young that I don't think we exactly knew we were taking as big of a leap. Oh yeah, totally. In what a lot of people thought was like the worst time to ever do it. Now, I would tell you that from some of these learning experiences we've already talked about and some like going forward, it was absolutely probably the best time for 2 young people that really wanted to make this a career and be entrepreneurs. It was the best time for us to get in because we saw we had so many learning experiences that were right there, positive and a bunch of them being negative of like how you maybe don't run a business, how maybe you don't run your life, so to speak, think about all the people that we knew that they had the Porsches and they had, remember this, they would bring in a tailor to this place and he would design your own suit and not everybody, but quite a few of the guys had their own suit. You'd open up the suit vest and have their name inscribed in it. It was, Italian, whatever. I remember Dodge Vipers. And I remember people living like Wolf of Wall Street thinking that it was going to last forever, and this business is kind of roller coaster. It's great right now, but like, you gotta find a way to live your life without and we saw, and if we didn't, I don't think it would be the case. Just fast forwarding this many years and knowing you and I as well as we obviously do, I don't think we'd have fallen into that trap. But it was definitely an eye-opening experience to see so many folks that really mismanaged a lot of money. That very quickly they went from having it all to kind of having nothing. It goes back to like we were learning how not to do things. Like nobody was really teaching us how to do things. We were kind of figuring that on our own a little bit, but it was like there were so many examples of bad decisions that people were making that we could realize that. So there was one other you asked me like kind of what did we learn from that period of time, and the other that comes to mind as you were talking about products and what we did, what we didn't. The other thing that I think we learned was surround yourself with people that have integrity and are trying to do things in the right way.
Yeah.
You know, for whatever reason, as we're kind of like looking back here in time, the other one thing that I remember was there were some loans at that point in time where you could do a single loan and make a lot of money. You know, $30, $40, $50,000 on a transaction.
Yeah.
And there were some people that would celebrate that in the office. But that was really never kind of how you and I or the people that we associated ourselves with, some of them that still work with us, ever really dabbled in those loans, because we knew that they were so detrimental to the client long term that we were basically setting them up to fail. Well, the person who was doing those loans was they were setting the client up to fail just for their own personal gain. So I think that surrounding ourselves with the right people and quickly kind of learning, like, really there were kind of two types of people in the industry at that point in time, and don't fall into that trap.
Sure.
Make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people is one way that I think we were able to gain that success as managers, leaders, and then as we make the next steps in 2007, 2008 was a big part of how and why we were even confident in doing it. We knew we had some good people that believed in us, that could make a change in their business model and be successful, that gave us the kind of the support and pillar to say, like, all right, we can do this on our own because we have some pretty awesome people that are gonna come along with us and do it right.
Yeah, agreed.